We'll call the town board meeting from November 20th, 2023 to order. First item on the agenda is the approval. Patrick, what do you got?
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the board, I don't have the statute to cite here, Mr. Attorney, but we would like to go closed session for union negotiations at the end of this agenda.
Chapter 13D.
Chapter 13D, thank you. I knew I was asking the right guy.
So this would be item 9A,
Yes,
where we would have to have the room cleared.
we would have to have the room cleared and closed.
Okay.
So then do you want to move section 10 up? In case anybody...
Oh, good idea.
Where do you want to move it to?
I would just put it right in front of closed session.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you. That's it from staff.
All right, board of anything?
I do not.
All right, hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. I need a motion to approve payment of the bills.
I'll move to pay, to approve payment of the bills. I signed off on those.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Item 4 is approval of minutes from November 6th, 2023. Anybody have any changes?
I did not. I'll move to approve the town board minutes from the November 6th meeting.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 5 is a consent agenda. We have 4. Does the board wish to run it, or you want to pull something?
I would, Mr. Chair, I'd like to, open for discussion, item 5C, the 2024 election polling locations, just for discussion, so it's not hidden in the consent agenda.
Scott, anything? Nope. All right, I need a motion.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Do a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, 5C is the election polling locations. We've had some changes.
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, the information as provided, Ramsey County has changed a couple of the polling locations, well, precincts, and I think that it's wanted to get it on the record so that the public is aware. Those that vote in precinct 1, they are now going to have to go to Tamarack Nature Center for the primary and for the general election in 2024. Not to say it will not move back to Otter Lake School, but I think there was a conflict with the scheduling of the school district. And so they made the decision, I'm trying to get to it, where it says, what's the other ones there? So precinct 1 will be at Tamarack Nature Center Garden House, 5287 Otter Lake Road. And precinct precinct 5, which is also used to be at Otter Lake School, will also be at Tamarack Nature Center. For the general and
But the other
primary. The other ones will stay the same. Lakeshore Players is precinct 2, South Shore Boulevard, precinct 3, and Heritage Hall here is precinct 4 for next year.
All right, Scott, anything?
Nope. So I'll move to adopt a resolution designating polling places for the 2024 election season.
And I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right, moving on. Item 6 is old business. We have a utility rate approval. This is for the 2024 utility rates. Tom, you gonna go over these?
Yeah, I'll go over these real quick. As you recall, both the Utility Commission and the Town Board went through these at a workshop. The Utility Commission went over these at a couple of their meetings. Basically, we are recommending, and the Utility Commission is recommending, that all the rates for 2024 stay the same as they were in 2023, with the exception of the stormwater rate. The water rates, the base rate would stay at $43.50 a quarter. Tier 1, which is 0 to 10,000 gallons, would stay at $2.55 for residential. Tier 2, which is 10,000 1 gallon to 20,000, would stay at $2.80. Tier 3, which is 20,000 1 gallon to 32,000 gallons, would stay at $3.80. And then anything over the 32,000 would be at $6.65. Likewise, the commercial rates are going to stay the same. And then the irrigation rates would also stay the same. residential at $6.75, commercial at $7. And then the sanitary sewer rates, the base rate for residential would stay at $38 per quarter, commercial at $34 a quarter, and then the volume rate, residential would stay at $5.75, and commercial would stay at $4.75. The stormwater in 2023 was at $24 a quarter, and they are recommending that be increased to $24.50 a quarter. And the reason is our rates are designed to cover 100% of operation costs and then 75% of the depreciation. We were playing catch up for a while with the water, the sewer, and the stormwater. Water and sewer has seemed to pretty much flattened out where the rates are at a level where they are paying 100% of the operation and 75% of depreciation, including replacement of the infrastructure. The stormwater, however, because of the number of projects and the cost of those projects, that is why they're recommending the increase to $24.50. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I currently do not have any.
I don't have any questions. I just think it's super that we're able to maintain these rates. In some cases, this is the third year running that the rates have not increased for some of the volume-based rates. And that's just because earlier there was a lot of heavy lifting, as Tom said. There was a lot of discussion in the Utility Commission trying to right-size it and make sure that we cover the cost, because as you know, there's all sorts of new guidelines and mandates and requirements and suggestions as to how water is treated and stormwater is handled. And that all adds up. That is not refunded to us. So this is good information.
Patrick, maybe you can answer this. Some of the costs we're incurring for MS4, which is through the state, does that fall under any of these or not? It's out of general fund.
I think we go to stormwater. on it.
Stormwater with it.
It's all stormwater?
Yep. And that is another unfunded mandate.
So for the public, what does MS4 mean? What is it?
It's something stormwater.
But it's a mandated.
It's a mandate.
It's an overview of how we treat all of our stormwater projects.
Yeah. So.
And it's quite intense. We've got staff working on this. Yeah. So the township incurs a lot of costs that are handed down to us that we can't pass along. So it gets a little tough when we're dealing with some of these rates to keep them the same and still pay the bills. So
It's just called municipal stormwater.
Okay.
Municipal separate storm sewer system.
You got me.
yeah, well.
It already had me. So, all right.
All right, board, have any other questions? All right, Tom.
So I will move to approve the 2024 utility rates as outlined in this memo.
A second?
I'll second that.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, moving on. Item 7 is public hearings. We have none. So we'll move to item 8, which is new business. This is Weston Woods. We have the association presentation. Someone from Weston Woods is, are you the designated spokesperson?
I am, Roger O'Sell.
You need an address for you.
Address 726 Crescent Curve,
Okay.
White Bear Township. I guess the last time I was here was in October, and we went over this whole thing on our irrigation. You realize you increased the rates from 2021 to 2022 for irrigation. We had been at that third tier, so I guess we're here to protest that, you're keeping it where it's at. What you did was increase our rates for irrigation by 57% from 2021 to 2022 on the flat $3.80 versus $6.55 or whatever it is. And the last time I was here, somebody wanted to know what the other associations were like. Well, there's 6 associations in White Bear Township, townhome associations. And of the 6 associations, we represent 559 units, which is probably 1,000 residents or more or less. And I've talked to the other associations, and they're in agreement that we'd like a rollback of the rates to what they previously were in the tiers, not back to the 2021 rates, to the third tier, of which it had long been established using that third tier rate. So I've invited all the associations. I don't know that they're all here tonight, but I'd like to have them each give a little presentation of their makeup. Weston Woods is 153 units, been around for 20 years. I've been there 18. Most of the people are probably 70s, 80s, 60s, pretty much retired community. Most of them are probably two people living in a unit. Some of them are one person. A lot of people are gone during the winter. A lot of people are gone during the summer to the cabin. So the water usage is less than 10,000 gallons per quarter. We did a study on that. I did give Pat a copy of my calculations of how we arrived at our figures, and he agrees with the figures. I guess for now, there are 6 associations here. Birch Lake Ponds, Parkview Village 1, Parkview Village 2, Southwind of Gilfillan Hills, and White Bear Preserve, and then the Weston Woods. I guess I'd like to start out with Birch Lake Ponds. I think Mark Weisner's here. You want to give a brief background of your association?
Good evening, supervisors and staff. My name is Mark Reisner. I'm the treasurer for Birch Lake Ponds HOA,
And what's your address, Mark?
1258 Birch Pond Trail. Birch Lake Ponds is comprised of 156 units. As the crow flies, it's less than a half mile west of here. Our western boundary is White Bear Parkway, and our northern boundary is Bebo Road. On the south, we're bounded by Fox Meadows Park. Most of our homeowners, like Weston Woods, are retired empty nesters. Our household size averages 2 occupants and quite a few single occupants also. The typical quarterly bill for a 2-person household averages about $8,700 per quarter. We have a centralized irrigation system that's divided into 20 zones. Our water usage this year through September 26 is approximately 5.1 million gallons. And our billed amount, again, through the end of September, is about $35,000. This year, we've replaced over 100 sprinkler heads. We've got an aging system, excuse me, the oldest portion of which is about 40 years old, and then it's been added to incrementally. So it's full-time work to keep up with that and to keep those sprinkler heads maintained and make the transition to higher efficiency heads too, obviously for water-saving purposes.
Mark, do those have rain sensors on them?
Pardon me?
Do they have moisture rain sensors?
Yes, we do have rain sensors too. So, again, trying to make them more efficient. If you did the math on the usage of gallons that we do for irrigation, that equals about 8,200 gallons per household per quarter. So in other words, our typical unit uses about 32,000 to 35,000 gallons of water per year. Per unit, we also use about 32 to 35,000 gallons for irrigation purposes. So that would bump us into the second tier. That, as Roger mentioned, we're here to ask for resubmission, if you will, on the third tier. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
I think the next one would be Jim DeJarlis, the south wind of Gilfillan Hills.
My name is Jim DeJarlis. I'm Southwind of Gilfillan. My address is 731 Gilfillan Lane. And I've been there for 7 years. And Gilfillan has been in existence since about 2000. And we have 54 units and very similar demographics to what the others have said, anywhere from age 60 to in the early 90s, 2 people per household, some with 1. We are, as he said, right, we're adjacent to Western Woods, and we are also being billed at Tier 4 for our sprinkler system. And in 2019, we were under budget for our water by $3,600. I don't have the data for 2020, but in 2021, we were over our budget by just $340. And then in 2022, with the new rates, we were over by $6,422. Our budget is $9,000, which was pretty much enough to keep us going up until then. And then in 2023, this past year, we were over by $8,970. So we almost doubled what our budget was. We've tried to be cost efficient too. We have sensors, as you mentioned. We've self-monitored and shut the water off after we've had heavy rains. Sometimes the sensors haven't kicked in soon enough, so we shut it off ourselves. And we've also cut the percentage of coverage from 100% to 60 and 70% quite often when we felt the grass looked green enough and didn't need the full 100% spray coverage. And as you probably know, associations have had some massive master insurance policy increases this year. And our dues went up by 20%, and with the insurance industry as it is, they're not predicting that it is going to get a whole lot better. And my appeal to you would be, since we're a residential community, not commercial, we feel we would like to be charged the same as a single-family home with a sprinkler system. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jim.
I think next should be Parkview Village 1. I don't know who's here. Huh? Well, okay, let's jump to 2 then. 1.
Mr. Chair, members of the council. My name is Rolf Parsons. I live at 2576 Parkview Court. I'm representing Parkview Village 2. Our association is rather small. We only have 24 units. We're about 25 years old as an association. We have an average residency of about 1.75 people per household. We have a number of single households. Our average age is well over 75. And at any one time, we may have as many as half of our people who are not living in their house. They're gone for the winter or gone other places for the summer. So we're very conservative in that regard. Not any swimming pools, and we're not doing any hot tub parties. We've invested quite a bit in the last few years in replacing controllers to increase our efficiency. I think we've increased our efficiency by at least 35%. We have rain-sensitive controllers so that we're not wasting any water. And we've been very aggressive on replacing our sprinkler heads so that we're going to a more efficient means. Overall, our controllers are set at about 85% at a seasonal setting. And I guess our main concern tonight is that we would like to be regarded as residents. We don't have a company or an entity, that's for profit or that we feel needs to be charged as if we were. We're just a group of residents who happen to be in an association, but we are the association. There's no corporation behind us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph.
Next would be White Bear Preserve.
I love mics. They're always so high for me. I'm Mary Ann Buck. I live at 4281 Oakmead Lane. I've lived in the township for since the mid-90s. Our association is the very first association. We were built and started to be built in 1982. So we've been here a very long time. We have 128 units. We have quite a wide variety of residents. Our residents range in age from 5 to 96. We have quite a few fixed income people. And, rather than going through the water bill has changed this, the water bill has changed that, I don't know how long any of you gentlemen have lived here, but I'd like to remind you that until 2012, there was a flat rate water bill. And during all that time, I paid for people's swimming pools. I paid for people with 15 kids, and now you're asking me to do that again because you don't consider me a resident? Because you don't consider me a homeowner? I'm making this very personal because you've heard all the numbers from all the other people. And that's where, let's get down to what's real. I'm a person. I live in a home. I own my home just as much as you do. By Minnesota statute, a condominium or a townhome is considered a single-family home. Your utility commission, a bunch of men, have decided that that's not what it is anymore. And I find that, quite frankly, quite discriminatory. And I really have to tell you that, okay, here we go again, or as Yogi Berra would say, with deja vu all over again. And I have all the numbers. Now, as far as the technical side of things go, well, quite frankly, we have put in everything we can to make our watering system as efficient as possible. We have a total of 38 acres, of which a good chunk of it is Rice Lake. So actually we have 19 acres of real land, of which we actually irrigate 6. The rest of it we let be. We have asked the township on multiple occasions, can we put the newest, best sensors in that not only sense rain, but when we need water, and only water when we need water. And we've been told in no uncertain terms, no, you can't do that because that will not follow the odd-even rule. Okay, so on the one hand, let's save water. On the other hand is, well, let's not do the most efficient way possible to save water. And that's the choice that you, of course, can make. I guess it just comes down to, how do I explain to my neighbors? My neighbors are the people who live in my association, that we are not homeowners, that we are not residents of this township. How do I explain that? How do you explain that? How do you explain discriminating against women and children and elderly and young families? Because that's what the Utility Commission has decided to do. We are homeowners as much as any other person in this association. And I would not only ask for, but I'd like to demand the same consideration. And if not, I want a long justification of why I am not a homeowner. And I'm happy to hear why you think I am not. So I know I've got all the documents here. I can do all the quotes on the water and how much has gone up and things like that. But the bottom line still comes down to something very simple. We are homeowners just as much as any other resident in this township. Thank you.
I think that's it. Parkview Village 2 must not be represented in there. 2.
All right.
Or except 1, excuse me.
Okay. Chad, you want to respond? I'm.
Well, there's some history here that needs to be. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Well, I guess I resent a little bit that we're accused of not treating you as residents. That's totally unfair. You pay property taxes. You have the right to vote. You are part of this township, like every one of us. So I object a little bit to those kind of accusations. That's really not fair to us. And as far as it goes, Scott sits on our Utilities Commission, and I hate to use the terms equity because we treat everybody fairly, everybody the same. Now, a lot of times it's overlooked that townships, these associations have common properties that you're watering. Common properties take up space that you normally wouldn't be watering. So there is a little bit of a percentage there. And if we're going to treat everybody fairly, then we have to make a determination whether, now I don't know if the definition is association is a commercial piece of property, and that maybe the attorney can answer.
Sure. Well, yeah, I've read the statute, know the statute, and I agree with you that your units are single-family homes. They're treated as single-family homes for tax purposes. The issue is not the units, the issue is your common area. And here's one problem. You mentioned that in 2012 it was a flat rate. Well, the reason the township switched to this conservation rate is that that was made a condition by the Department of Natural Resources of Minnesota for their well permits. They were not going to renew the well permits unless the township switched to a conservation system of billing. That was required. And keep in mind that all the well permits, we have two of them, one for the north system, one for the south system, that those permits are governed completely by the Department of Natural Resources. They can change those things, they can change the terms on that anytime they want. Now, we do have the right to challenge that, and we did the last time around. But the fact is, they control the well permits that the town has to have to pump water, to provide you with water. So we have to live with those. And that is why you went from flat rate to conservation rate. Then you had the White Bear Lake lawsuit. I will tell you right now, watering, lawn irrigation was one of the biggest factors that the plaintiffs hounded on at trial. They kept bringing it up. And the judge, in her findings of fact, talked about irrigation quite a bit too. So, and the town fought that lawsuit. I didn't sit there. My senior partner, who's now retired, sat there for a month fighting that lawsuit, and it didn't work. It's gone up to the appellate court. They didn't change a thing, both the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. So the fact is, what you're seeing in terms of your rates are really, to an extent, not totally mandated, but they are influenced by the decision reached in the White Bear Lake lawsuit. And part of the settlement, when we finally settled that lawsuit with the DNR and the plaintiffs, was the fact that we agreed to be quite hawkish on lawn irrigation. That was one of the considerations. That was one of the factors. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think the board does too. But the fact is, the board's hands are somewhat tied based on both the DNR and on that lawsuit. By all means, go ahead.
You got to come up to the mic, please.
As I understand it, in the lawsuit, there's a lot of nuances to it, are far beyond my ability to understand. But as I understand it, there's nothing in there that says specifically anything about associations. They do say quite a bit about irrigation. There's no question about that. And it would seem to me now, I'm just trying to deal in logic here, but maybe I'm not being logical. But if you have 5 units in a building, 5 homes, that's 5 different single-family homes. If you had those as individual, separate, freestanding homes, they'd use a lot more water. So in reality, all of us as associations are in fact using less water than would be used if, in fact, we were single, detached, separate, standalone family homes. And my common area is what I share with my neighbors immediately around me. So, I suppose we could go out and say, okay, Janie Smith, this part of the lawn belongs to you, and this part of the lawn belongs to you. We could possibly do that. But it seems to me that reality is, we see it, and I know I see it as an individual, that this is my home, this is part of my property. I am a single-family homeowner, and no matter what you say, you can't change it either by statute or anything else, because the statute does say I'm a single-family homeowner. And to call us a corporation, I think, is an insult. I think it's really, really bad. To swing back to an earlier comment, Mr. Lemons, about 2012 when we changed, we actually started putting in water meters in 2008. And part of that was because a lot of pressure was put on this board to change to water meters, not only because of the requirements of DNR and so forth, but also because of the homeowners saying, we're tired of paying for other people. We want this leveled out to what should be correct for each individual homeowner. So even if you look at the common areas, I'm still paying for that common area as part of my single-family home. I don't mind paying for water, and I really, really believe we need to do a lot of conservation for water. That is so darn important because we're going to run out of water on this planet if we don't watch it. But I also don't think I should be treated differently than someone else, nor should my property, nor should my association. I think we are all approximately the same, but there was a lot of pressure back in the early 2000s about getting water meters in from homeowners, not necessarily from the DNR. So that's part of it too. I was here. I remember very well the conversations. Thank you, sir.
But actually, can you do me a favor? You made a lot of comments, and I lost your first question. Could you ask your first question again? Because I have an answer for it, but I might have lost your first question. The first question, first point you made. Do you remember? No. I don't. Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot myself. You left. Excuse me. I've got a cold. But let me answer the first question. Yes, you're right. The lawsuit. First, the lawsuit. It did concentrate a lot. I mean, a lot of the evidence brought by the plaintiffs dealt with irrigation, how much water is used for irrigation. Okay. And the problem you have is, how do most in single-family homes don't have separate meters for their irrigation systems. We haven't gone that far, and meters are expensive. So, but the only ones that actually have separate irrigation meters for the irrigation systems are, unfortunately, associations. All right, and I don't know if anyone else does. I'm not sure if any of the businesses do, but
Businesses do, but.
businesses do. Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, and okay, the corporation thing. That's a red herring, and I'll tell you because yes, it's true. Associations are nonprofit corporations, but that's not why you're built that way. You're built that way because you do have a separate irrigation system that can be metered. Okay, but I want to get back to your point about why water meters are put in. The water meters are put in as part of the plan to satisfy the DNR's requirement of a conservation system. You couldn't have a conservation system unless you had meters. And the meters have caused, we spent quite a bit of time on that. As you all know.
A lot of money.
A lot of money too. And as you will know, we basically had to threaten the water meter installers to replace the meters because they weren't working properly. It's been a lot of work over the years. And so the fact is the meters were actually part of the water conservation plan mandated by the DNR. Now I say mandated, it was clear in their permit that they did require the township adopt a conservation system of billing, okay? Which is why you have the tiers, and why the town got away from flat rates. So that was part of the DNR's amendment to the water permit plan. And I believe that was for both permits for both the south system and the north system, definitely the north system, because when they built, was it well 6, one up by Benson Airport, you had to amend the permit at that time, and that was one of the conditions. So.
And we're also facing next year, when this lawsuit finally washes out, we're going to be forced to hire a water officer because they are going to be coming down on us to make sure we are following what the court mandated. And that at that lake level is what, 923?
923.5, I believe, is
The lake falls below that, we have to stop irrigating.
Period.
That's it. So, which means we have to run around with water police to cite you, and so this is getting real ugly. So, a matter of tiers and commercial and residential is probably the easiest part of this to figure out. But no, I don't know. Scott, you sit on the utility commission. Did they actually talk about the difference because of the commercial versus the residential as how they're?
The difference in the commercial, the difference in the irrigation rate, or the difference between the irrigation rates of the two, commercial and residential? I think you're saying the irrigation rates. So the comments that were made were very similar to what had been shared earlier already. There's common area, There's more water used. This had been discussed over a couple meetings. I know that we were going to have some folks attend last month's utility meeting, or was it this month's? It got pushed off, I believe, to a future meeting, maybe December. But the committee does actually take a very robust perspective on this. It is currently made up of men, but there have been plenty of women in the past. So there is a large discussion, it's a very strong discussion about what makes sense, because these are residents that have to pay these bills too, some of which are in or have been in associations. This conversation, I'm sure, is going to continue, because when it was first brought to our attention, I think intuitively the comments were made that, the comments were, we've used less water, but we've paid more. Well, intuitively, that doesn't make sense. Why would that be? And it's continued to go through discussions. I think that I really would like to have the Utility Commission continue to discuss this with perhaps some more residents to make sure that they are getting the input directly from you. I will certainly share it with them, and as will staff. But the recommendation that they made at the last meeting was to keep it as is. They saw no reason to change, even though they had heard, I believe Roger had been out a few months ago to discuss. At this point, they felt things should just stay the way they are.
It's also, it's sad to say, but the more you conserve, obviously the less water you use, but we still have the same infrastructure that we got to maintain. And when those get aged, and when we have to keep trying to hit that 100% depreciation, our numbers still keep going up. So it's sad to say that when you literally control what water you're using, the numbers keep going up. And we just have no way around that. It's over $1 million just to paint one water tower. We have huge expenses that we have to try to, recapture. Tom, you got, I know there were some questions about numbers.
The only thing I was going to add is our commercial irrigation rate is currently at $7 per thousand versus the residential that the town home associations are paying at $6.75. So they do get a little bit of a break.
Yeah, but it's a big difference. You had somebody else?
Go ahead, sir.
So we're clear, in terms of your actual residential use as an owner, as a citizen, you get charged the same rate as a single family. The problem is you have separate meters for your irrigation systems and homes don't. And again, to fit in with what the township is required to do, irrigation rates are going to be higher. You clearly have a go ahead.
Oh, yes, I definitely have a question. My name is Steve Navarro. I'm the vice president of the Western Woods Association. I live at 4820 Greenhaven Drive. The basic question that comes to my mind very strongly is, you look at the square footage of an existing home, and it varies. All the lots are different. And then you look at the square footage in associations, and you mentioned common property. Well, that term is kind of a misnomer. If you look at the size of lots, if you were to cut our twin homes in half and what property is there, that's just like a single-family home. So the terminology here seems a little odd to call us, more than a residential situation. If we were actually measure out the square footage that's being watered, it's similar to single-family homes. We get charged, yes, on an individual basis. We have meters for the homes, and we get paid that. We have the meters for the irrigation system. But that doesn't change the tenor of what we're looking at. It's still a residential piece of property. It's not commercial, and it should be at the same tier as a single-family home. And when you look at all the associations and the work they put into conserving water, we're probably using a lot less than a single-family home. Yet they're being charged, what they're being charged. And I believe that, are they metered also on the individual home and the water that's used there, or is this just a flat rate? I'm asking a question.
All individual homes are metered as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
the
just wanted to make that
conservation
clear.
rates are
Yeah.
apply to everyone.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear. So if you look at it in the tenor that I'm talking about, the square footage is less than single-family homes, yet we're at a higher rate. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, okay, first of all, it's your irrigation systems that are a higher rate, not your homes
No,
themselves.
we understand that. Then
And so, yeah, but I want to make sure, because we use terms that we kind of,
I know they're
they're mixing and matching. We got to be careful.
I know.
Because-
I'm a retired businessman, so I know that we have to have language being the same. And that's really what I'm trying to clarify, is that if you look at the square footage of each individual home in a townhome situation, it's less than your normal lot.
Actually, I know exactly what you're talking about, because over my career, I've actually done work on townhomes and pioneer developments. And I know this, that some townhome units are what's called de minimis PUDs, which means there is no common area. There's all one big lot. And in which case the association actually cuts grass, but they don't maintain anything but that. In fact, there are some I've seen where the irrigation is done off the faucets of the homeowners themselves.
Right.
So I know how that works. I understand how it works. It's just that your projects are such that in some, in some of these projects, your common area is quite large, in which case there's a separate irrigation system for this.
Well,
we're getting.
I know where you're headed, but it's not fact, if you will. That terminology of common ground, anything outside the footprint of the townhome is common ground.
Well, again, it depends. If it's a de minimis PUD, there is almost no common area. They've divided up the entire project into individual lots. The association may cut the grass, but the actual lot itself there's no common area because the lot covers everything. Others, the lot itself is simply, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I haven't seen Western Woods in a while, but. Yeah. I mean, some cases, the only dirt you own is that underneath your unit itself. In some cases, in some cases, there may be a small area. Other cases, you own the dirt all around you too. It all depends. But here's the point, though, and here's the point I'm trying to make, is that at the trial, the biggest issue was irrigation. And I will tell you right now that if the water drops below 29, 23.5, lawns aren't going to look very nice next year.
We know that.
And I understand, I am not trying to be facetious here, because I've spent 10 years of my life with this case. And 10 years never get back. But that was my job. That's what I was hired to do. And it's going to affect everyone, both affect townhomes, it's going to affect single-family lots next year. The only thing you're going to be allowed to water are trees, your gardens, and new grass, new sod. Other than that, if you get a drought next year, it's going to be a lot of brown grass, I'm afraid.
In essence, you're saying we're going to have to turn off our system.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's to satisfy the court order. Irrigation systems, everyone's, single-family homes.
High probability.
High probability. I'm not saying, understand, do not take this as 100% certainty.
No.
It all depends on the water. But no, to conform with the court order and the settlement that was reached, we will have to force people to turn off their irrigation systems, both in townhomes and single-family homes, everywhere. In fact, I don't know if you know about this, but February of last year, the DNR had a nice little info session for municipalities. You know what they were going to do? They were going to cut water from, right now we're at 75 gallons residential, 90 overall per person per day, okay? They were going to cut that down to 50. And more importantly, they were going to cut off hospitals, schools, all businesses. The only people that were going to be allowed to provide water, we were going to be allowed to provide water, were single-family homes. That was it.
This is how radical this thing is.
And that's, and I'm not, and that
very
was.
radical. It's very radical. You know, the request of the group really is, again, getting back to the basic premise that even though the ground is called common, if you were to measure that ground, it's equal to, if not less than.
I know exactly what you're saying. And I'm saying, but you got to look at it not from the standpoint of common versus lot, it's standpoint of irrigation. So, if unfortunately we hit a drought next year, to meet the settlement, we're probably going to have to tell people to stop watering your lawns. Everyone's going to be stuck with that. And it's unfortunate. All right? I don't like it. I spent 10 years fighting it. But it got to the point where it was not a battle we were going to win.
Yeah, I can understand that stance, if you will.
Yeah.
I can appreciate it, and I understand that stance. But getting back to the billing, just the actual dollar amounts that we're being charged as associations, if you go back to that thought process that our land that we're watering is less than the average, if you will, lot per unit.
Oh, yeah.
Per unit. Okay, but yet we're being charged at that higher level.
Yes.
And that's hard for people of our ilk, if you will, and age. I don't want to say that I'm old, but I'm getting there.
Well, I'm not young either, so.
Okay. No, but my point is, it seems there's a disconnect there, if you look at it from that standpoint.
We just had a road improvement completed.
Yeah.
And that's another prime example. People feel like their house is smaller, their frontage is smaller. So we go down the line as we have to do this what's fair to everyone. We can't just piecemeal and go pick this one out or this one out because we'd be here all day. And a lot of people just don't
I
understand.
wrote the check already.
I feel your pain. But so this gets down to fairness is one thing, but we also have to be the same throughout the township too. We try to be consistent as where we can. Now, I granted, I understand your point. Whereas if you're only watering around your house versus watering the open space, or if you're not watering anything around your house and you're splitting all that irrigation up, but how do you take just the property around your house and pull that out of the irrigation for the rest of it?
But that's the point. If you really look at these associations, that term, common ground, it's a misnomer. It's an absolute misnomer because you have these homes, and yes, what's in front of my townhome and what's behind my townhome is referred to as common ground. But if you were to measure it and put it up against other homes, it's maybe as much or less than the average individual home. So we're being charged, if you will, at that higher rate because you believe the common ground is so much greater than other homes, and it's not.
That's because the way they calculate it, because if you're only using that footprint.
Well, my point is, though, it's still, when you talk about what's getting wet, it's the same as a single-family home if you go by individual unit.
If it were possible to separate single-family irrigation systems from the use for the home itself, I mean, just domestic water use.
Which it is right now.
Yeah, well, no, hang on.
Okay.
Let me get to my point. I'll try to do it fast. If you could separate the irrigation that's done at a single-family home from the domestic water use, then the rate should be the same for everyone. Problem is, how do you do that?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But why should we be charged more because we actually keep track of it versus someone who turns on their tap, screws their hose to it, and waters their lawn?
Which is why, to be fair, the only way to do it is when the water level gets too low and we have to cut off irrigation.
That I
Everyone's going to
understand.
be affected the same.
Yeah.
That's about the only way you really do it.
No, that I understand. I'm talking about what we're being charged.
and
It should be the same as a single-family home.
But we can't, but again, what Chad's trying to say is we can't go by a single-family home because they don't split up their grass to their internal use. So until that happens, we wouldn't know that the rate changes. It would change everybody's residential and yours, because now we're gonna see what water comes out of your hose to the yard. But again, it just it convolutes everything if we have to take all the residentials and try to figure out how these associations are splitting up their water. Now we have to try to tell the homeowners, how much water are you spending outside? We don't do that.
I guess, if I were to do a study, if you will, and get the average lot size and what that homeowner in overall is paying over a year's time for water, and then be able to do some sort of figuring as to how much of that water is going into the lawn, that's the matchup.
That's true, but they would have to have, like I said, a separate meter for that. There's no way of studying that.
Okay.
You need
Then again, we're being penalized because we have meters.
Well, again, if we go with the tiers and how we define where you live, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, that's the way it works out. Now, and if the utility commission come up with a better idea,
I would really like to have them take another look at this. Again, we were going to do it earlier this month, had to get pushed off. So the conversation, in my mind, still needs to take place the next meeting, which will be early December. And I really want to make sure I've written down a lot of freaking notes. I'm sorry. I've written down a lot of notes.
It's okay.
And I want to go over this with them because, again, intuitively, what the first comment was and what your comments are now intuitively makes sense. I want to run it by this group and make sure that I'm thinking this through. And I also want to look at numbers, of course, from the finance officer to validate what I'm thinking. So I'll probably want to reach out to you between now and then, Tom, to see if we can get some comparisons for these folks to look at. And I believe at this last month's meeting, representatives were supposed to attend, and I guess, I don't know if, Pat, you had suggested that they wait until next month, or if we invite them back again, but.
Yeah, I said, depending on the direction of the conversation tonight, you might want to make a reappearance at the utility commission.
I think that, I don't know if you want to have cast of hundreds there, but, because it's a much smaller room. It's a much smaller room, but, the comments that you've made, I think need to be discussed much more thoroughly.
I agree. And that from our standpoint, if we can get some sort of hearing, if you will, and present this focus that I just presented, I think, and they can tell us why, seriously, why it's different for associations versus a single-family home, we'd have to look at that and see what we're dealing with.
and Steve, we're not drawing a hard line in the sand here.
I know you're not.
We're keeping the conversations open, and
That's why I decided to come up and talk, because I know you're not keeping a hard line, but you need to get as much information as possible. The other background is I'm a real estate broker, and I understand, the finances of these homes and the square footage of lots versus associations. I lived in single-family homes, and now I'm in my third association. And the differential, again, that term common ground, it's really a misnomer. And that's maybe what I need to talk to the commission about, and how they view that, if you will.
Good. But one thing, the common ground thing, it's actually statutory. And it's created by whoever created the townhome projects, defined what is common area and what are units.
I understand that concept.
I'm sure you do. If you're a real estate broker, you know exactly what I'm
broker,
talking about.
I understand that concept. And, do we need to go back as individual associations and redo our charters and have surveys made to show this, that's the other thing.
I actually done that, and it's a lot of work.
I know it's a lot of work. I've been through that before.
It can be done. But
It can be done.
here's the key point, is that under the original court order, which is now 5 years old and has gone all the way up through the Supreme Court system and back down again, the appellate system, I should say. And the settlement we reached is irrigation and domestic use are two separate things. And the trick is, how do you separate the two? Because the irrigation is what Judge Marion really focused on, not the domestic use, though she did take that into account. But it was really the irrigation. That's what she really focused on, and that's the problem. How do you do that?
Yeah,
especially with single-family homes.
that's the basis of what I've been talking about is
Yeah.
how do you fairly do that?
And that, I think we both agree, that's the issue. Question is, how do you do it?
Okay.
All right, any other comments, Steve?
I'm Mary Ann Buck, and I have a question. I'm a little confused, and so let's make sure I got this straight, because I think we're all missing the point. The point is, associations are individual family homes just as much as any others. As I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the difference between what you're looking at is the differences. Our water meters, we have water meters for our each unit. We also have a water meter for common area. And the average standalone home does not. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
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 Okay. So
Well, actually, the best way to look at it, the way you have to look at it is, no, hang on, is how do you meter domestic use, water use for domestic uses, and how do you meter water use for irrigation? That's the problem.
Okay, but so let me take this next step, if I may. All right, I understand that correctly. Okay, you talk about common ground. Who owns that common ground?
Your association.
Association.
Who is the association?
You people.
People.
Oh, I own the common ground.
Again, we're I'm sorry, but we're really, the issue really needs to go back to the utility. You're gonna
I
debate
agree with you, because
little itty
the
bitty
reality is
pieces.
this: we own the homeowners own the common ground. Whether you call it common ground or however you call it, doesn't matter. It's just, again, it's, as Mr. Lemons will say, it's who owns the dirt. Okay, but we as an association own the dirt, and we are all paying for that. So I'm paying part of that bill every month for water. So the only difference is I can see it is our water bill is bifurcated and the average home is not bifurcated. Therefore, we're paying a penalty for being bifurcated.
Well, first of all, you've nailed it. The bills are bifurcated because you're running two separate systems. But the fact is, for your domestic system, you're being treated the same as everyone else. And if we could find a way to bifurcate the irrigation system for single-family homes, we would, but we can't.
I understand
Short
that.
of-
So my question
Well,
comes
actually,
back to,
there is one way of doing it, but it would be extremely expensive, and the board, I can't see the board requiring people to do it, is basically say, if you have an irrigation system, you have to have a separate meter for that one. Single-family homes.
Am I
And
missing
I
something
just
in
don't
this?
see
And
that.
I may be missing something in this. How do I ask my question? Since everyone agrees that the common ground is paid for by the owners of the association, so it's still paid for by the homeowners, I think you'll all agree to that. Okay? Okay. And the only difference between an association and a single-family home is we have this extra meter. Would we all agree to that? Okay?
Yeah.
So that makes sense, and yes, you're correct. I think trying to get the entire township to have a separate meter for that would be extremely difficult. So what difference does it make? Why should we still, just because we have a different meter, that's the same as, well, let's see, your sweater is different than mine.
It's the
Why
volume.
should she pay more? Why should I have to pay
okay.
more than she does? I mean, so that's my point. Really, there is no difference. It's just how it's set up. Unless, and here's my question, is there something in the settlement that says that makes a difference,
Okay,
specifically?
only lawn irrigation. Lawn irrigation is its separate component of the settlement. And basically what it says is this. It says that if the water level drops for 923.5, and if the DNR orders it, we have to basically force everyone. No, you want to know what the order says, I'm telling you. If the water level drops below 923.5, that's the water level of White Bear Lake, the DNR can force us to basically tell everyone to cease watering your lawn.
That order does not.
I
no,
understand that, but
order.
let me ask a question
You
on
got to
that.
listen to something. That order means everyone. It doesn't specify
Everybody, whether it's a
associations.
townhome or a single
It doesn't
family.
specify associations. It doesn't specify
There
business.
is no
That's my entire point.
differentiation.
But
So we should be charged the same as a single-family home. Just because we have a different meter doesn't matter, because we're all having the same consequences. Everybody does. And I hope it doesn't, I hope we get a lot of rain, but probably not. But logical train is that, you're saying that you're treating townhomes differently and associations differently because we have a different meter.
Chad, I'm sorry. I think
And
this conversation could go on forever.
Yeah, I
Yes,
agree
you
with you on
can.
that one.
And I would
And-
really
but
like to
thank you for
suggest
clarifying.
that we let the utility commission talk through this in more detail and forget I'm sorry, I'm going to say put to the side the definitions of how a townhome operates from a single family. The point we want to discuss is how much water is being used and what's being charged for it. So I would really like to have this squarely number one topic for next month's.
About the only topic.
The only topic would be perfect. And we can talk through that. And at the same time, I think, Tom, you had stated earlier a couple surrounding communities just by way of comparison. Maybe we can broaden that a little bit and have that as part of the discussion as well to see if we're totally out of line or are we within a realm, a ballpark. But I really want to discuss further this whole concept of irrigation versus single-family water usage. That is a great question because I really like the transparency. I also am reminded of the comment about watching how sausage is made is sometimes not very appealing. I think that it's going to be important for you, for your representatives to discuss with the Utility Commission face to face. I'm wondering, Pat, if we should do that in December and maybe there's just like a quiet period where you can observe but not say anything while they thrash it out? Or would the conversation be more dynamic if it was before anyone was there?
Well, considering the Utility Commission, I think under any situation, they're going to have a dynamic conversation. From that, but I see your point. It's a larger question that we're going to have to thrash through, that maybe giving them the opportunity to, from each of their perspective, what they're thinking on this before we get into exchange of ideas here.
Do you
maybe,
think?
Maybe, I mean, if we got it as a single agenda item here in December, we have it as a single item agenda in January to follow up, and we have representatives.
Do you think we could split the meeting in half and have the first part
Yeah.
internal, and then I'll just say, I don't know, 7 o'clock. I mean, it's 7 o'clock here. Meeting starts at 6. Have representatives then show up. Do you
good
think
idea.
that an hour would be, with this group, do you think an hour would be long enough for that?
If we emphasize the dynamic of the potential discussion, I think they could.
Chad, I got a question though. If the way we've done this, because they're classified as basically these entities under statute, are we getting into some legal issues by treating them different?
No, you're treating the unit owners, you're treating the units the same as you're treating single-family homes.
Okay.
In
All right, so
terms-
we're not going to be stepping on any,
No,
right,
no.
legalities.
No. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, you're not doing it, but to answer your question, Mr. Chair, if you were to have a different rate for townhomes versus single-family homes for domestic use, then you'd have a problem, but you're not. Domestic rates are the same for everyone.
All right. Well, we appreciate y'all for coming. Like I said, like Scott said, we could spend a week on this and not get it done here, but
I like Scott's idea of splitting the discussion into.
we're still working on it, and the wheels of government don't turn real quick.
I like that process because after they've had the discussion, we get some understanding of where their thoughts are and why they're doing it the way they're doing it. That's what we're looking for.
I think that would be really helpful, and at the same time, they would hear from you directly. Again, my notes only capture a portion of what you were saying, and I try to be as thorough as I can, but I'm going to miss stuff, and you can say it in a more coherent manner. I think if we do it all together, we're not going to keep kicking it down.
Yeah.
Because I would just as soon get this resolved as soon as we can and move on.
All right, thanks, folks. All right, we've done a little agenda jump around here. We're going to move to open time, so if there's something that we haven't discussed, if you want to come up to the mic. Sure. Thanks, sir. We have a student,
We're not quite done yet.
You're getting close.
We're getting close. We can't
but we
sign
can't
it.
have you go to,
Quite
no,
yet.
no, no.
No, they have to sign it now.
We're not in closed session. We're just doing, it's
I know, but if I don't sign now and goes in closed
Yeah.
session, then she's
then we
gotta-
have to sign.
But then we got to kick her out.
I know that, but I thought maybe there was something that she might pick up.
We can sign them now.
Come on back.
I think what Steve is
That's what I
saying
thought,
is
we'll sign them now.
we're still in open session.
Yes.
We'll go into closed session shortly.
Yes, that's all I was gonna say. The chair decides. You got one too?
I don't think it.
You have one of our busiest meetings tonight.
Yeah, you had a pretty robust conversation.
Do you even care?
The island.
No.
Island was good.
There you go. What class is this for political science? What is it? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we done?
We still have open time.
That's all I was, just, I didn't know if anybody had anything to say or not, so we don't move on.
Well, I asked for open time and then everybody just started leaving, so.
Perfect. You were right on. You're the chair.
Go to closed session, go back in.
All right, I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion. Do I have to put in what we're gonna discuss? A motion to go into closed session to discuss
Labor
labor negotiations.
negotiations. I believe it's the
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? But you
I hope so.
All right, Chad, you want to give an overview?
Board was in closed session for the purpose of discussing a labor contract.
Chapter 13D.
D, I think it was .05, I believe.
Okay.
I'll double check that.
All right. Anything else?
No,
Sure.
2 hours, that's all good.
Well, actually, are you in open time right now?
Yeah.
Something quick. You had the issue of gifts last Friday. Under statute, you're only allowed to give gifts to food shelves. Any organization that provides food to the needy. Basically how they define it. That's it. And it has to come out of general funds. It can't come out of
So it's
anything else.
cash you can give.
You can give them cash, yeah. It has to
Okay.
come out of general funds, but only food shelves.
Okay.
No one else.
Is that allowed on a, like, if you decided you wanted to give every month? Or is it one, is there a max?
All the statute says is that the town can elect, actually it says in municipalities, which includes towns for once, can elect to make, cash grants, cash gifts to any organization that provides food to needy people.
Yeah, but that could be churches.
Well, yeah, you could,
Could
but
be, but I can tell you from experience that all the churches have come to an agreement that they will refer people to the White Bear Food Shelf, and they contribute on a monthly basis. They don't take,
So, like, you could do the White Bear Lake area food shelf, you could do the Second Harvest, you could do any of those that
yes,
do
it
food?
says any organization
I see.
that provides food to the needy, I think.
There's no cap on it?
No cap, just says, all it says is this, it has to come from general funds, so you couldn't use like the water fund, or the storm sewer fund, or EDA funds. It has to
Oh,
come
it seems
from
completely
general
appropriate.
operating funds. But that's it. That is the only gift you're allowed to make.
Okay. There you go, Scott. So when they do make their request, I'll bring it to the board and you guys can deliberate.
And remember, the township, all municipalities are creatures of statute. You only have the powers that the statutes give you. So if someone says, well, why not? Because the statute says you can't do it, period. Well, actually, because the statute, no, it doesn't say the statute, just says you can't do it.
It doesn't say you can do
You
it.
can do it, exactly. The statute does not give you the power. It only gives you the power to make gifts to basically food shelves.
I'm glad you went to law school.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure myself. So.
All right, moving on. Need a motion to receive general return supplements?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Need a motion to return at 8:55.
So moved.
All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys.